Okay, we're talking about rate of change. The different words for rates are ratios and fractions. A over B or A to B. Those are different ways in which you can write a ratio or fraction. You can also write it as a decimal by doing top in, bottom out. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you convert a fraction to a decimal? I just said it. T-bow, top in, bottom out, you divide. Okay, y'all had questions like this on your test. When you have this, don't write this down, but when you have stuff like 3 3/5, don't do this, which 5 times 3 is 15 plus 3 is 18/5, because you put more work on yourself. You already know that your whole number is 3, then just T-bow the fraction. 3 in, 5 out. 5 goes into 30 6 times. This is 3.6, not 18 divided by 5, 0. 5 goes into 18 3 times, then 15, then 3, then 0, then 6. You already have your whole number. You're putting extra work on yourself when you do it this way. Yes.
Oh. Never mind,
So, keywords and important information. Rates. When you see them in word problems, you're going to see the words like out of. For example, in Miss Starling's class, there are, 12 boys out of the total. So, it's probably going to be like 12 out of 30. Okay? For every. The example that I have here is the babysitter gets paid $11.25 for every hour that she works. How much does she get paid for 1 hour?
$11.
Thank you for listening. $11.25. How much does she get paid for 2 hours? $22.50. Okay, that's the for every. Whenever the amount of time changes, the amount of money should change as well. Ladies, I need y'all to stay focused. Per. Okay, a carton of eggs is 89 cents per dozen. Each. For each bracelet, Brittany needs 25 beads. How many beads will she need for 3 bracelets? Say it one more time. For each bracelet, turn around, she needs 25 beads. So, how much does she need for 1 bracelet?
25.
How much does she need for 3?
75.
75. Think about money when y'all hear 25. Think about a quarter. Hey, turn around.
So, plus 2.
In the example, she will work 24 hours in 2 weeks. That's the rate. 24 hours for every 2 weeks. Put the number that they give you first as your numerator. For example, ratio of boys to girls. Boys goes on top, girls on the bottom for the denominator. All right, now inside your note, a rate of change is not the, I want to put how. A rate of change is how one, excuse me, this is not the time to talk. How one variable changes in relation to the other. How one variable changes in relation to the other. The example for that. Now, when I give y'all formulas and stuff like that, please put them in a box. I'll show you what I mean. So, M is my rate of change letter. That's just the letter that they chose to use. Equals delta Y over delta X. Delta is a Greek letter. It's a triangle, but it's called a delta. The examples, I just talked about a couple on the back, but an example of a rate is miles per hour, feet per second, and gallons. Do bless you, per minute. Pardon? They are going to be in Google Classroom. I always post the notes on there.
What is this? Am I recording it right now? What do I say for you?
Guys, stay focused. You are asking irrelevant questions right now. The equation for rate of change is y equals mx plus b. Where m is my rate of change, b is my y-intercept. That's where x is 0. And the example, y equals negative 1/2 x minus 7. Rate of change. Negative 1/2 is my ROC, my rate of change. And negative 7 is my y, make that look like a 7, intercept. ROC equals rate of change. Yes, sir.
So the rate of change is always next to the like the diagonal.
Yes, that is correct. The rate of change is always your coefficient with x. We'll also talk about the constant of proportionality because it's going to be another coefficient later on. The y-intercept. So on a graph, it's going to be where our graph crosses the y-intercept. So you know the notes that we took 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Right here, it's where the line crosses the y. So my y-intercept for this line would be right here. My y-intercept for this line would be right here. Okay, but we're going to be talking about linear relationships, so they're just going to be one straight line. This just so happens to be a shape because I wanted y'all to practice plotting points on a grid. All right, the table. So there are 5 different forms. There's an equation, there's a table, there's a actual ratio, then there's a pictorial version, and then there's a graph. So the table, I need to look for patterns. In the X and Y columns. Looking for patterns in X and Y. What is happening from the -4 to the -2 to the 0 to the 2? I need a hand.
Adding two.
You're adding 2 on the X column. So over here, put +2. +2 and +2. I wrote it real tiny because I'm trying to squeeze it in. Then what's happening on the Y column? Yep.
It's being divided by 2.
Not divided by 2 because -1 divided by 2 gives me -1/2. I'm going straight down. What's happening from the -2 to the -1? I'm getting toward the positive, so I'm adding 1. Good. +1, +1, and +1. So now in order to write that as a rate, who goes on top? Look at what I wrote over here in this box, ladies and gentlemen. What letter's on top?
Y.
What letter's on the bottom?
X.
So my rate of change equals delta y. That's the change in y over the change in x. So y is changing by a +1, And x is changing by a positive 2.
So it's called delta?
Delta means the change in mathematically.
Always be a positive.
Nope. So my rate of change is 1/2, or how can I write that as a decimal? 0.5.
We just talked about this point.
Now to break down the ratio over here. M equals delta y over delta x. Change in y over change in x. Ladies, I hear consistent conversation. I'm going to need you to be quiet so that you can understand what this is when you get homework on this. I'm not up here teaching for me. I know how to do this. This is for you.
Oh, you have homework?
Probably not today, but in the future, you will. I'll give homework every night. So this is read as delta y over delta x. So this tells us what our rate of change is, and this tells us how to find the rate of change. So now I have a different type of table. This table is vertical, this one's horizontal. It's still going to be delta y over delta x. So what's the change in x? How do I get from 7 to 11? Plus 3 or 4? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
4.
4. Then how do I get from 0 to negative 3? Minus 3. Good. So my delta y over delta x. What's my change in y? Negative 3. And what's my change in x?
4.
What's my change in x?
4.
Plus 4. Let me put a plus sign there. Good. Negative 3/4 is the fraction form. What's the decimal form? Yes, sir? Negative 0.75 hundredths. Okay, so that's how we find our rate of change using a table. Later on, you'll have to learn how to make a table. All right, there are 4 types of rates of change. One type is a positive. One type is a good. Those are the ones that we're going to involve ourselves in mostly in 7th grade. And then there's a 0 rate of change and undefined. Undefined means that it has a denominator of 0. You cannot divide by 0. You'll get an error. I was telling 8th graders this when they were working on this last year, and they see it now more in 8th grade because these two are 8th grade. So, for example, if I have 7 over 0, that means my delta y is 7 and my delta x is 0. Then if I try and divide that, 7 divided by 0 is going to give me an error. I cannot divide by 0, ever. So that's why it says undefined. That would be 1. Oh, nope, still an error. I'm glad I checked it to prove myself either wrong or right. Okay? So for these lines, you'll have 4 types of lines. All of them are straight. These are all linear relationships. The word linear, again, you don't have to write this down. You wrote that on your notes yesterday. Linear means in a straight line. In algebra, you'll learn about parabolas and hyperbolas. Oops, that's a bad